Maharshi. We will start the session with the Sanskrit, so everyone please Om Samana Vavatu Samano Bhunaktu Samaviryam Parvavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Vidvishravai Om Shanti 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 Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Is that it? Now I request Raghav Kumar Ji to start the workshop.
ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। So welcome to this second session in our workshop and study of self-enquiry and how it's possible to discover a deeper source or core of what is conventionally called happiness in your own life. A small aside I thought I would mention was that there are some preparatory steps before you actually take the self-enquiry. And yesterday we looked at some of those steps which you can incorporate into your daily practice or meditation, just to become aware of the different aspects of your being, starting with the grossest physical body, come to the mind, then go deeper. So again, we'll repeat that process a little later in today's session. But as an additional point which you would really benefit from, I'll share with you what is known as the benefit of repetition of any mantra. So much is made of mantras, a lot of maybe hype too is there about them, but there is some very tangible benefit even from a very, if you like, secular point of view, even without bringing in the real deeper benefits from chanting of a mantra. Even if you were to analyze or try to understand what a mantra repetition does to your mind, it's good to know this. So now let's say I ask you a question. What is your thought going to be after maybe 20 seconds? Just think about it. What's the thought which is going to be there after 20 seconds in your mind? If I ask you a corresponding question, what is going to be the position of your hand? Well, you might say, okay, I choose to keep my hand here, and 20 seconds later, my hands will be right there, or my legs. So I have a say over the posture, the position of my physical body. Now, let's say extend that to your mind and think about this question. What is going to be the thought, the event that takes place in your mind after 20 seconds? Think about the question. No way you can actually predict what is going to be the thought after 20 seconds. That goes to show that you really don't know what's going on in the mind. It has its own rhythm, and you're just going with the flow, as it were, exercising a degree of control, but not really. The mind has its own, as it were, story. So you don't have to put it in a black and white way, any say over what's going to happen in the mind, which is what you are, what defines you. 20 seconds later, you can't say anything about the mind. That's the degree of lack of control, lack of any say in the matter. Now, what does mantra repetition do? See the amazing thing there. Even if you were to do it with some degree of inefficiency, like, okay, your mind is wandering, but I stay with a certain syllable, a mantra, for a while, then an unprecedented thing is happening here. 20 seconds later, I can say with a reasonable degree of confidence, I'm going to be thinking of that mantra, the sound, perhaps the meaning in the background. So when you do mantra repetition, you're doing something unprecedented really for your mind. You're introducing an element of flow and control, if you like, in the mind, which never happens in any other event or any other practice. You're going to be able to predict that your mind is going to actually think of that particular mantra after 20 seconds. So it's like for the first time, the mind is being regulated in a certain way which it has never undergone that kind of training. And it's a very big thing because, like we saw yesterday, one of the key, if you like, processes by which the mind gets into these negative, emotive, and thinking patterns is the associative thinking. You remember that? You see the limousine, then you go to Arab sheikhs, and then China or something, and then you find, okay, I don't have a good job, or I need to get a good job, and then, oh my God, my grades aren't all in place. So you get into a certain negative kind of a thinking pattern, a self-talk, right? So through japa, or through mantra repetition, you're getting a hold of that mind. It's going to not anymore get into so much of strong negative thinking patterns, which is why in the Indian tradition, they have given a secret that the key to understanding and getting that space between you and your emotions, you and the mind, is mantra repetition. It's not ordinary. Let's no, I'm not even looking at the deeper, let's call them esoteric aspects of mantra. Let's just ignore that in a very secular way, even if I were to say. Not that I don't validate that, I validate that, but for now, just look at mantra as a way to get a handle on the mind, to get behind the emotive thinking processes, the repetitive or neurotic thinking patterns, which are so common in most of humanity, like we discussed yesterday. So the mantra helps you get before that. It's like a priori. Before your mind can get into that, you are trying to bring it to a certain rhythm. So you know what is mantra repetition, right? So you have just a syllable. Let's say Om itself. Just say Om, a longish Om, better. A short pause. Again, a long Om and a short pause. Enough. That's enough. You can have other mantras if you're already having some affinity for that. Well and good. I'll just start with Om. There's a certain beauty to the Om, which is cross cultural. It's used all over Southeast Asia and including the Indian civilization. So you start with Om, and if you're comfortable, Om Namah Shivaya or any other mantra. But what I said is universal for all mantras. So some of the students whom I teach who are from a Western background, so it took me some time to understand that they are not even really comfortable with some of the traditional Indian mantras. So then I tell them, you can take any sacred syllable in your own tradition, but just stay with the sound and just stay with the repetition. It's an enormously powerful practice. In that, like I said, for the first time in your life, you're having a say over what the mind is going to do after a short while. Never happens in any other process. So that's why that's very powerful in arresting or reducing the momentum of these negative thinking patterns. It's you can say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Just practice mantra for 15 minutes a day. If nothing else, you will see a difference. You will see in a difference in the way your mind, starts acting, because you got, like I said, some space with respect to your mind, some time to give that two-step response which we talked of yesterday. Someone says something, or there's an event in your life, you something bad or not very pleasant has happened, you immediately don't get into a depressive or a negative thinking. You get that space to slow down that thinking pattern. So mantra is very powerful. Although, like I said, it is still preparatory to self-enquiry. Okay, self-enquiry is directly staying with the fact of being aware, as we saw yesterday. But this is also a very important practice. So, just to tell you something a little bit about Sri Ramana Maharshi, he was very versatile, very open in his teaching. He validated all these methods like every great master. So he validated this as well, although it from the talks, etc., it would seem that he emphasized more of direct self-enquiry, which is fair. But for you, from a very practical, I'd say, brass tacks kind of a point of view, mantra repetition works wonders. Stay with it, and you can use any particular mantra. Like I said, the important thing is to stay with it for like 10 to 15 minutes. So that itself is a very powerful practice. So I say this as a takeaway. Okay. So you know why the mechanism, why the technology of mantra is works in getting a handle on emotions. So that's one of the big things today, right? So where events in life are so fast, you just don't have time to get a little space and hold over the mind and emotions. So mantra is very powerful as a method. It was there in other cultures, but they lost it. In India, we have still kind of held on to it. And so, like I said, so stay with the mantra repetition with any of the mantras you are familiar with. If not, just Om is also fine. Just Om, like I did at the start of the lecture. Just Om, a short pause, and Om. And the other thing I'd like to share here is about how the mantra also will, if you are able to time your breath with it, also fine. Okay. So as you chant one mantra, slowly you inhale and exhale if you do it mentally. So we'll try to do a little bit of exploration of that as well before we take a little insight into self-enquiry also like yesterday. So the idea is that you actually use the mantra chant within your mind or aloud, either which way, to slow down your breathing rate. So it's again, like I said, a very something is. Are you getting the sound there? Yeah. So it's again a very powerful. When I say powerful, it means that you don't need to really think too much about it. It will work whether you really know how it works or not. That's what I mean by the word powerful there. So if you are able to rein in the breathing rate, okay, it's as simple as the number of breaths per minute. The mind will slowly come into your control. So this is again, like I said, I'm putting it using just secular language here, where they have found, the researchers, that if your breathing rate comes down to about 8 to 10 breaths per minute, the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. So there are these two parts of your nervous system called the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is, uh, to put it in popular language, the rest and digest part of your nervous system. So there are these two parts: fight and flight, rest and digest. So both these are required. Okay, fight and flight is the one which immediately puts you on alert, which is what any animal under attack from a predator, it has to immediately, summon up all the energy, the adrenaline has to flow, the muscle tone has to increase, it has to run or fight back. That nervous system is required very rarely. And what modern culture does to us is it is again and again triggering the sympathetic nervous system. So we are always like this inner ninja, always afraid of what threat is going to come from around us. Immense source of stress, immense source of distress, unhappiness, and so on. So in meditation and mantra and using the breath as well, what you do is you increase the parasympathetic activity. That's going to rest and digest. So think of the animal, it has got a good meal, then it's just relaxing. Okay. There is no sympathetic activation in that animal. So in most human beings, that parasympathetic nervous system is not sufficiently strong. So they're always in the inner ninja mode, always in the fight back mode, even when it's not required. If someone says something, let's say harsh, typical in any interpersonal reaction, so they're not going to kill me. I'm not going to die. I don't need to use physical violence. My muscles don't have to become taut. I can just coolly try to take a step back and say, if I need to push back against their words, you push back. But you can still do it in a relaxed way. But the animal, if you like, response in the person triggers, and he immediately gives an impulsive response, which he or she might regret, and then it compounds into a repetitive thinking pattern. Why did I say that? Why did he say that? It goes on. Okay, that's all the sympathetic part of you, which always is in an aggressive mode. So like I said, so mantra and breath are very powerful tools to activate the parasympathetic rest and digest part of you. So that doesn't mean you become lazy, that doesn't mean you become less productive. It's the other way around. You involve as much energy as is required for the task at hand, so it's very helpful. And so what happens when you do the mantra repetition? The breathing rate gets down to 8 or 10. So once the breathing rate gets down, your body cannot but get into the rest and digest mode, which is very helpful. Okay. On the other hand, see the converse. Whenever you're agitated, just check your breathing rate. It will be on the higher side, anywhere between excess of 15 to 25 or more. So that kind of a breathing rate invariably will influence the mind. So yesterday we saw that the breath and mind are like two branches of a tree. Okay, this is Ramana Maharshi's words. He says, Chittavayavaha Chitriyayuta Shakayodvai Shakti Mulka. So the breath and mind are like two branches of a tree. And so the analogy goes that, let's say there's a tree with fruits a little higher up. Okay, the higher branches, as often in life and in with these trees, they have these tasty looking fruits a little higher up in those higher branches, and you can't directly reach them. Then what do you do? Well, assuming the branches are a little bit malleable, you catch hold of the lower branch and just pull it. And the higher branch also bends. Okay, because both the branches are connected at some point. So you catch hold of the lower hanging branches, which is in our case the breath, and pull. So in other words, you regulate it, reduce the breathing rate, and so on. And then the higher branch, which is the mind, also comes into your relative control or regulation. So that is why breath and mind are two aspects of the same personality, that is you, and you can have a handle over your mind using the breath. That's what all pranayama does. And like I said, through mantra repetition timed with breath. So you just chant a mantra very slowly, take a deep inhale, again chant the mantra. Automatically, your breathing rate comes down to 8 to 10 per minute. And it's very effective. Okay, again, two tips. Mantra is helpful, coordinating with breath also very helpful. These are like takeaways. You can just stay with that. Behind all the other, let's say, methods, if I can use the word, in the marketplace. So the technology or the fact is, this is the core, what I'm telling you. So they can add a lot of fluff. They can say, this is a very magical mantra. It's something very special. Okay, all that, maybe I'll give you the benefit of doubt, but this is what it is ultimately. Okay, you are working on the parasympathetic nervous system, it will work, and they get all the credit. So there's an anecdote told that there was this American guy in the US, and there was a time about like maybe 40 years back when this movement called the TM movement, the Transcendental Meditation movement, was very popular in the US. And so this guy goes to the local guru there, and they are very much into this, you pay some money, get a mantra, and your problems are solved, kind of a marketing trick. So they say, okay, you got to pay $500 or some very high amount, and they give you one little syllable, Aim. Just a syllable, Aim. You chant Aim, all your problems will be solved. That's the marketing hack they were using in the US, apparently. So this guy pays so much, a big amount of money, gets this mantra into his ears, and he comes home and starts chanting the mantra, closed eyes, and then his wife comes and she says, "What are you doing? You're doing something weird. I can't relate to what you're doing." He just ignores her. He just continues to chant the mantra, I. He's all zen, all very balanced. He goes on. It's a Bijakshara. It's not the way it's to be chanted, but anyway. So he goes on chanting the Bijakshara, Aim. The wife gets more and more worked up. And then she says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I paid $500 or $1,000 and got this little letter. I keep chanting that, and my problems will be solved." She gets wild. "How dare you? We are running short of money to pay our bills. And you wasted $1,000 on that little letter just to learn a letter? I am fed up with you. I've had enough of you. And she just goes to the cupboard, packs all her stuff in her suitcase, and walks out. But he is still Zen. He's chanting. 5 minutes, he's chanting. Slowly he opens his eyes. The mantra worked. The mantra has worked, he says. I can't believe this. The mantra worked. So that's what it is about without knowing what's happening. Okay. So he wanted to be free of her. And so it's worked out in some funny way. So because he didn't have an understanding of what it's all about. But on a more serious note, mantras do work, but in different ways. Like I said, it's a very concrete kind of, if you like, technology here. And our ancient people had, therefore, an understanding of all this. It was generally told from person to person, so it's not all very well documented what I'm saying. Whatever I'm saying, or I got it all from my teachers, nothing original. So in India, that's one thing. Being original can be a sign of just not acknowledging your sources. So that's another thing. So whenever you encounter any teachers or any, like, let's say, movements, always ask them who are your teachers. Okay, since they should have some people they acknowledge, and not try to say I made it all up. So there are some kinds of teachers who say I made it all up, not very trustworthy. Just a thumb rule to know who is authentic and who is not. When they have a parampara tradition, they're likely to be more sound. Okay, and also a kind of gratitude. You acknowledge your teachers or whoever. They can be more than one, fine. But anyone who tries to say it's all my own thing, I don't belong to any tradition. It's just my thing. Got to be a little wary of what they're getting you into. So they may be more like cults. So yeah. So to come back to this, so therefore, in your takeaway from a practical point of view, stay with any mantra repetition and see if you can use the mantra to slow down your breathing rate. It works like magic. 15 minutes minimum, it will work very well. So I had a friend who was actually it's my friend's friend anyway. So he was suffering some insomnia. So he happened to practice this. Works like magic. So again, why? You know why it works? It's not magic really. This parasympathetic nervous system relaxes. The sleep is so much better. It's all very transparent, happening there. Nothing magical really. So that's one thing. What is all this about? A preparatory practice. Okay, gets your mind to a first a relatively quiet state, and then self-enquiry can really take wings. It becomes more effective. So now we'll do a little recap. What did we see yesterday? So we saw that all humanity in different ways is trying to deal with this basic fundamental human problem. Why human problem? Because animals don't have it. They are just in the present moment. They don't have self judgment. They don't say, oh, I'm a small dog. I'm a poor chihuahua. That's a big Alsatian. No problems there of that kind. They're just happy being themselves. Human beings, we have self judgment. That's very basic. So it's like the way things are. We can't ask why. That avidya or that self non acceptance is so basic. And unless that is looked at and addressed, no matter what one achieves in life, there will be misery. There will be distress, dukkha as it's called. So the only way that dukkha can be dealt with, meaning that deep inner angst can be dealt with, one needs to become aware of what is happening, that the deep self judgment is there, and then address that, challenge it. From where has that come? The very light of awareness, you shine it on your self judgment, it will resolve. So that's the whole journey, how you take it step by step. So another thing, what did I say? I said that this self judgment, which is at the root of each of us, leads us into so many compulsive pursuits. Okay, what's a pursuit? Traditionally, we call them pursuit of pleasure. So in pleasure, a person loses himself and finds some forgetfulness, and he feels okay, or some achievement. It's called artha. So you achieve something, security or success in some way. All of that also gives a person some freedom from that self judgment. So it's, in a way, a bit tragic. My teacher used to say, look, normally you think that unhappiness has a source, right? Yeah, something outside of you makes you unhappy. That's not the way it works. Really speaking, you don't need anything to be unhappy unless a person is really wise. All the person needs is to just be with himself. Oh, and he gets into a negative state. That's the reality for most people. That just thinking of what they are makes them unhappy for most people because of that self judgment sitting there, that I am small, I am insignificant, I have not achieved something I need to achieve. You can achieve that, fine. You have achieved something, you have not achieved something, that's going to be always there in the balance sheet. But the moment I reach, I already have a self judgment based on the condition of my body and mind, that's going to give rise to dukkha or distress without any external source. So, in other words, what this whole path of self inquiry tries to hint at and lead you towards is to say that happiness is not a source of complaint, it's just what you are. Unhappiness needs a cause. Okay, you need to really look for the sources of unhappiness, not really the source of any happiness, because that is your own swarupa. Unhappiness, yes, it has a cause because of the self judgment. So why, that's why do you find so many people in bars and or in some kind of entertainment avenues, because they are forgetting themselves. So if you want to be happy for a typical person who's unaware of what is going on inside, so if he forgets himself, he's happy. See the the inversion of what's happening. You forget, or a person forgets himself, he's happy. Then conversely, he remembers himself, he's unhappy. So unhappiness is, for the modern man, typical modern man, derived by just recollecting what I am. That's tragic. That need not be the case. Okay? Just when I recollect, or when a person recollects his condition as he thinks himself, unhappiness comes. So he seeks many avenues to forget himself, either some drinking or entertainment or any other neurotic pursuit you can think of, the mobile phone, the smartphone. The moment you pick it up, you lose yourself, lost in those images and the information overload there. It gives you a kick, and then you forget yourself for a while. Afterwards, it becomes an addiction. So this thing has to be inverted. This is like a disease, that if I need to keep forgetting myself to be happy, it's not going to work. I have to learn to be comfortable just being myself without any external input. I'm just happy just being myself. So irrespective of what I do, what I achieve or don't achieve, I first discover a degree of comfort. Like I said, just being myself. So in self-inquiry, that's the significant breakthrough. That my teacher used to use this very nice sentence. He used to say, I can be comfortable doing anything, studying, research, or career. I can be comfortable doing anything only if I'm comfortable not doing that thing. Yeah, I should be first comfortable. Yes, I am a human being, a conscious, simple being. I have this capacity, some limitations, and I play around with that and celebrate. Yep, life is like that, then it's fine. But if I have to keep doing something to be comfortable, then I'm in a fix. That means it's a dependence, an addiction. So in self-inquiry, therefore, you try to discover this space and question that self-judgment you have. And like I said, mantra and breath, all of it gives you that space to come back to yourself and discover comfort without doing anything. It's not a small thing. If a person says, I can be comfortable without doing anything specific, just observing what is, that's a significant achievement. Have you noticed how when you're, let's say, in touch with nature, that's the thing, that's the way we use the word, right? So you're with nature, you're relaxed. How many of you are relaxed when you're with nature in whatever way you define it, or animals? You're relaxed. Why do you think that is so? Why do you think you're relaxed when you're amidst nature or animals, assuming you are? Yeah, calls of the birds. Yeah, so they're kind of relaxing. So do you see what happens there? Just look carefully at what happens there. For the moment, that nature or the experience doesn't evoke that judged person. Okay, contrast that with, let's say, someone who judges you. Just recollect the image of that person. The displeased self is evoked. That already the person who thinks he is small, insignificant, that is evoked. So that's not a happy experience. Nature doesn't judge you, and you don't judge nature either. You accept nature as it is. So see that whenever you accept something as it is, you're relaxed. So it doesn't take a really big thing there. When you are experiencing something that you don't desire to be any different, you're relaxed. You look into the eyes of a baby, you're relaxed. You look into the eyes of a competitor or someone like an authority figure, you're not relaxed because there's all the baggage which gets evoked, right? So that's the idea we are trying in meditation. You're trying to come back to that person who is evoked when he's in touch with nature. who is evoked when he or she is in touch with seeing a little baby or a pet. So why do pets appear so loving and relaxing? Because they don't judge you, they don't care what you have achieved, they don't care how much money you have. It's unconditional love, if you like. So that's the kind of thing. And if even if I don't use the word love in nature, there's no judgment. So there also it's a very relaxing thing. Why? Again, it evokes the basic simple person. Okay, you can use this language itself, it will help you. That certain people, certain experiences evoke the basic, simple, naturally relaxed person. Okay, it doesn't require effort. When you are relaxing with nature, taking a walk, going on a trek, okay, the trek may require effort, but not so much a nature appreciation, right? Doesn't require so much effort, struggling, gritting your teeth, controlling the mind. No, it's a very naturally relaxing experience. Why? Because you don't judge nature and say, this is not okay, this should be different. You don't want the sun to be any different, the snowy mountains of the Himalayas to be any different. So on the other hand, if you're an environmental activist, maybe it won't be relaxing. You'll be, oh my God, all the glaciers are melting. So that's a different thing. But let's not get into that. So let's just say you are one and happy with the way nature is in front of you, you're relaxed. So just tell yourself, whenever that basic simple person is evoked in any experience, I'm relaxed. That's the truth about you. That's the core part of you that is evoked now and then. Actually, that's the reality. Why? Because those experiences are like true mirrors. What's a true mirror? As opposed to, like, let's say, an amusement park mirror. You know what's an amusement park mirror? It has all these curvatures, concave, convex. You see yourself and you'll be like a big smile or a big frown. It distorts what you are. So that's called a false mirror. It's not, it's having all these distortions. A true mirror, just flat, plain vanilla, you see yourself as you are, right? Now, an experience where, or like I said, of nature, relating to someone who doesn't judge you, like if you have some a very, unselfish mentor figure in your life, all of them, they don't judge you for what you are. They don't have an agenda for you. They just accept you as you are, wish you well. All of them are like true mirrors. Okay, when you relate to them, you are relating to a true mirror. So you see yourself as you are. That's that's what beautiful. That's very relaxing. No effort required there. And so meditation, what happens? You're doing that awarefully. So you're not looking for a big opportunity to go off on a trek, or you don't have so much freedom to always, let's say, have some people who are all non-judgmental around you. So in meditation, you're awarefully trying to evoke that same basic relaxed person. Okay, that's the key part in meditation, evoking that core part of you which is naturally relaxed, naturally at ease with himself or herself. And it's possible to do that in a very systematic way without any mysticism. Let the mysticism be there, it may be there, fine. But even without all of that, just talking, transparently what is happening there. Like I said, meditation is that space. You're trying to create that space so that the basic person is evoked. And that basic person, as Sri Ramana and Sri Ramakrishna, all of them say, is full and complete. He is discovered, or she is discovered as the embodiment of fullness. All that one seeks is already there in the form of fullness, completeness, wholeness. But that's to get ahead of the story. But initially, like I said, you create that space, that opportunity in your like daily schedule to come back to being that simple, basic person. And what happens at the other time? See the contrast. You are with roles, so many roles you are playing. So there is going to be some amount of stress and pull and push and so on. So after a while, you learn to not let go of that basic person, that relaxed person. You can deal with all these roles without any conflict. But for now, you need to create that space. So in your daily schedule, take off at least 15-20 minutes morning or evening and employ one or the other of these methods. Okay. Either it could be, like I said, breath based, just self awareness, or mantra based. And like what we did yesterday, we'll do one more session today. So just figure out a systematic step by step way to come back to being that simple, basic person. And it's very healing. It's like you are your own therapist in a sense. When you do that, you are your own therapist, because you're, like I said, discovering the space between you and the emotions. Then you can heal that. If you're always caught up in that, then you're caught up. You cannot really heal that. You need to take a step back, and then you get a handle over that. So that is the crux of this whole practice of meditation. So now to put it together now, so what did we see? We saw that The pursuits tend to be compulsive. What is compulsive? You don't have a say over it. No matter how rich a person gets, he will want more for sure. 100% sure, unless a person addresses self inadequacy, self judgment, that I am small and insignificant, which is called avidya in the Indian tradition. Unless that is addressed, no matter how much a person possesses, that is going to be unaddressed. It's like logic, simple logic. Like I said, you can sweep the room any number of times, but unless you switch on the light, you won't get light inside the room. Even so, unless that I am not okay is challenged, that I am small and insignificant is challenged, that's a wrong notion. Unless I challenge that, it will remain. There's a rich man, he will still feel he's small. He hasn't gotten to the next business victory or business venture. That smallness will continue there, which is why you find many times rich people getting into depression and all kinds of problems. And similarly goes for pleasure. After a while, no matter how much pleasure there is, that basic person remains unaddressed. They have not really challenged their self judgment. They remain some kind of in some kind of misery or some distress that continues. And yes, to some extent they forget themselves in something. Yeah, they get some temporary relief, but doesn't really work. On the other hand, when you have a very systematic, transparent method which is validated by thousands of years of humankind's experience. No, we call it PTR, proven track record, which is what self-enquiry and mantra repetition is all about. By taking to that, for sure, you know that you're challenging that deep-rooted avidya. You're coming step by step to that basic person, and you can feel and get rid of that. It's like a thorn in the foot. Once you get rid of that, one can continue to live the life in a very compassionate and very dynamic way. Doesn't intrude or doesn't mean that you have to necessarily stop everything and get into a cave like existence. That's not intended here. For sure, a great deal of healing can be there. It's in your hands. Okay, so that's what I would hope would be a helpful takeaway, that incorporate 15 to 20 minutes of meditation. Use the initial mantra or pranayama. By pranayama, I mean just slowing down the breathing using the mantra, and then come to some self awareness based uh, meditation for like 10 to 15 minutes. Excellent start to get a hold over your mind. Rest of it, so much of maybe you will find different methods and so on. uh, Maybe I'll mention this. So one method, all of you, if since you're interested in this, you will invariably encounter so many teachers. Be wary of is methods based on hyperventilation. Okay, what is hyperventilation? Extremely quick breathing and bastrika and too much of that, and it gives seemingly spectacular cathartic results, very harmful. So they don't, and unfortunately, deal with the fallout, because I am on the other side of the fence. I know what happens. So 10 people or 100 people do this hyperventilation based kriyas and so on. 10 people get into serious problems, and the people there don't know how to deal with that. They just go away out of the spotlight. So you hear the apparent success stories of this hyperventilation and so on. So anything like that which is a little violent in terms of pranayama, no, avoid that. It's not healthy. Okay? So because I do see so much of such methods in the in it's being taught like that. They were never taught indiscriminately like that. On the other hand, gentle, slow breathing, as we saw, slowing it down perfectly fine. You can do it for any length of time, not the hyperventilation. That's you breathe excessively, you increase the sympathetic activity and then bring about a catharsis. I've seen people going just berserk, crying and so on. Because some hidden emotions, all of it comes out, not healthy. That kind of catharsis is unhealthy. So unfortunately, it's taught, and there's a large market for that, because people get these spectacular results sometimes because they feel some kind of catharsis. They let go of, they scream, and they do all kinds of things. Not healthy. Okay, so just be wary of any such manipulative practices. So the truth is generally plain vanilla, and it works. Okay, any such fanciful methods, there is some problem in that. So that's the whole the path is about. So first you have the preparatory practices through self-enquiry. Then the core of self-enquiry is to deal with what this I is all about. What is this I? Have you ever even looked into what is this I? No. The I itself is such a mystery. It is there in and through every moment. Every moment the I is present. When I say I am talking about awareness or consciousness. These words, it's very interesting. They are actually modern Indian words. I would go ahead and say that they are not there in they were not there in English until recently. as they are used in the Indian context. We are not probably very aware of that, but the very word consciousness, until like maybe a few decades ago, was used for in contexts like social consciousness or AIDS consciousness, things like that. It's coming as an adjective to something. It was more about something to do with the external world. So this idea of consciousness as this field in which all thoughts are occurring, the field which is unaffected by the content of thought, and yet it is all pervading. It's there every moment. This use of the word consciousness is really an Indian thing. Indian teachers, pioneered the use of the word, and then they caught on quickly, people in the West. So words like consciousness and awareness, standing for something which is impersonal, is really a very new usage of the word. And so even by just looking at that word carefully, it's a meditative kind of a practice. For example, think of an object apple. Think of the word apple, whatever it evokes in you. Okay, just close your eyes. Let's do this. Just a half a minute exercise. Think of an apple. Think of a rose. Think of mountains. A table. A chair. Consciousness. Consciousness. Okay, slowly open your eyes. So what I wanted you to pay attention to was, when you think of any object, was consciousness absent? Was it absent? Was it absent? It was there, right? So when you think of a table, table consciousness is. When you think of a rose, you can say rose consciousness is. When you think of mountains, mountains consciousness is. It obtains, is meaning it is there. When you say consciousness, it is objectless consciousness. It was not new. It's not absent before. It's not another object. You see that? Consciousness is not one more object in the continuum of objects that you're thinking of. It is like the field in which everything is happening. It was there when you thought of the rose, rose consciousness was. Mountains, mountain consciousness is. Consciousness, plain impersonal consciousness. So the idea is that is what you're trying to arrive at and recognize in your very awareness, recognize that that is free of any of the problems of the content. Okay. So if I think of, let's say, a dirty gutter, okay, a gutter water, sewer is sewer. That sewer water doesn't affect the consciousness that thinks of that, that visualizes that, or even that experiences that. Consciousness is not sullied by the content of whatever is consciousness. Okay. So consciousness doesn't get the smell of the rose when you say, I imagine a rose, or even I experience the rose. The fragrance is there. After that, you move away, let's say, it goes away. Consciousness remains untouched. So whenever you recognize this, you pay attention to the fact that in and through every experience, consciousness is, and yet consciousness is unchanged, avyaya, unaffected. Okay, it is ashlishta. It is not touched by anything that is in consciousness, and yet without consciousness, nothing is experienced. So that consciousness is therefore of the nature of purity. That is the real nature of what you are. So the whole path is trying to make you pay attention to that you are that field of awareness in which things are coming and going, like the screen on which different images are, going and coming, like on a cinema screen. The cinema screen is not burnt if there's a fire on the screen, or it's not wetted or doesn't get wet when there's a perfect storm being shown on the screen. So consciousness is that very field in which everything happens, all experiences happen, but it is untouched, unaffected by what is the content. So that is what you're trying to arrive at and discover that it is of the nature of fullness. Okay, discover is a key word. You don't actually do anything. You don't need to do anything to achieve that. The beauty of this whole journey is that you're not actually trying to do anything. My one of our teachers, Sri Ramana Maharshi, used to say, and he was perhaps being a little half facetious. So he says, if a teacher comes and says, you have to do this, you have to get up in the morning, you have to meditate, you have to do this, then he's not a teacher. He is Yama. And Yama means the Lord of Death. Already you're burdened with so many doing, and the teacher comes and says, you have to do one more thing in your life. Otherwise, you're not okay. That's very unhelpful, he used to say. Instead, the teacher actually brings to your attention something effortless, something that is effortless and very wholesome, very relaxing. So that's the whole idea, okay? That effortlessly you discover fullness, effortlessly you discover certain completeness, freedom from distress. So the effort, if at all, is you have to pay a little attention, you have to show some interest, okay? It's not an effort like trying to struggle and so on. So the key to self-enquiry, therefore, is effortlessness in meditation. It's not, like I said, going to occur in a day because of our habits. So we are habituated, like I said, to think and think and think in a neurotic way. But the key is therefore you discover relaxation effortlessly. Like I said, just step by step, come back to what is and discover that I am already a relaxed person. I'm already full. I'm already of the nature of happiness. So you discover that step by step. Otherwise, it's going to go away. The law of gravity, it was, we only said discovered, right, by Newton or modified by Einstein. So it was only a discovery of what already was. So it is pre-existing, a priori. So consciousness as of the nature of fullness, your nature is not something that you have to achieve. It's something that you already are, but you need to just pay attention to that. So the stock example given is that there was a gentleman, he had his specs on top like that, okay? And then he was looking around, where are my spectacles? So he searched around because already his specs are up, so he's not able to clearly see what's in front. And then his wife comes and says, yeah, I know, I don't know where your spectacles are. She knows that he's got them on top. He wants to have a little fun. So she says, yeah, keep looking for them and keep looking for them. You'll find them. And so he goes on searching for his spectacles, not knowing that they're just there, right there. Okay. Then after a while, the wife says, okay, you got to apologize for all the things that you did or didn't do. First apologize and place your hands on your head and apologize. He says, okay, I apologize. And then he touches the spectacles. Okay, he discovers, okay, they were already there. So the idea is that you don't have to do anything. All the searching that he did was in a way superfluous. Maybe he needed to do that to just get to the point where you stop searching. Okay, but it's a discovery of what already is. Okay, so this entire journey, since we are having a short session, I'm just giving you like a map of the whole journey. Okay, not so much that it's getting into details, but it's a discovery of yourself as you already are. So my own teacher used to say that this whole journey of self knowledge doesn't promise you anything. It says you don't need to be miserable. You don't need to make really an effort to be happy. You discover you are of the very nature of happiness. It's a discovery, what already was. Otherwise, it's impermanent. Just think about it. Anything that is a product of your efforts will be impermanent. And I don't want something that's impermanent. I don't want a happiness that's impermanent, right? I work hard, I achieve something, I get a certain happiness, then it's gone after a few days. Then the next goal comes up. Got to keep struggling for that. This endless, what's called samsara, endless circle of becoming. You keep becoming somebody, you keep becoming, you become an engineer, then you become a whatever postdoctoral fellow, and then you become a researcher. It goes on and on. This becoming is not going to give us the freedom and happiness that we seek. So instead, it's a discovery of what already is. So that's the only way out. That only is the permanent solution or permanent freedom from dukkha. So I discover what already is, not a product of any effort. So that's a very big, big, you can say, understanding that whatever I do will have limited results. Therefore, the only way to get a permanent freedom from sorrow is to understand I am already free from that. I already am of the nature of fullness. When I come to that point, that alone is lasting. That alone is the permanent discovery of oneself as purnaha, as fullness. So this whole, if at all, method is to just remind us of what already is. It's a set of instructions given to lead you to, like the wife showing the husband, okay, put your hands on your head, and then he discovers his spectacles on top. Okay. Even so, all meditation is ultimately a way of pointing out, bringing to your attention what already is about yourself. So, which is why in the tradition which is of self-knowledge in India, they say the teacher says, look, once you know the truth, you will say, hey, you didn't give me anything, so I'm not going to give you your fees. So just in a joking way, they say the teacher says, you better give me the fees up front, okay, before I teach you anything. Because once you learn that you're already the same as me, or you're already the nature of fullness, you'll say, I was already fullness. What did you do to me? You didn't give me anything new. So you will not feel any gratitude to me. So the teacher facetiously says, you better give me my fees right now, and after that I'll teach you and help you discover that. So they say Janaka and Shuka, there's a conversation where Shuka says, Janaka says, give me my fees up front. I don't know, afterwards you may say, you didn't give me anything, I was already fullness. So he says, okay, I'll give you your fee up front. So this journey is like that, which is also why this journey of self knowledge is impersonal. It's not so much stuck up on some personality. So what is the relief for a modern person? And if I'm told, unless you believe in one particular person, or unless you believe this particular dogma or doctrine, I'm not going to, you won't get felicity, you won't get freedom. That's not very happy. But instead, this is an impersonal tradition, like a bit like the scientific tradition. So many great personalities are there. We are grateful for them. But the truth is a matter of verification for everybody. It's not a personality based path. Okay? So that is why whenever you encounter any, let's say, teachers or anyone, keep this in mind. When the personality is prominent and the method and practice is secondary, be wary of that. So I had a teacher who put it nicely. He used to say that when the teaching is sound, initially the teacher's personality is important. You have to trust him. You have to be a little open to what is being said. No doubt the personality of the teacher is someone you have to learn to trust them. But after some time, the teacher goes away, so to speak. He's no longer important. What he's teaching is important. So the teaching remains with you. The teacher's personality goes away. Literally, it becomes inconsequential. The exact opposite when there is a cult or there is a charismatic teacher. You only hear of the person and their get up and all their clips and so on. So the idea there is that the personality of the teacher becomes the predominant. The charisma of the teacher is carrying the whole method, and the teaching is not really sound. It's not very impersonal. There you have to be wary. Okay? So this whole journey therefore is more a matter of self discovery, less importance to any dogmas or any particular personality. And that is why Sri Ramana Maharshi, whose name was referenced in yesterday's flyer there, he was of that kind. He would really give the teaching and say, you are free, you are independent. He would never look down on any of them, any others saying, it's beyond you. All this will take a lot of lifetimes. He would never take that stand. Here and now, it's possible to discover that freedom, to discover that fullness. So he would always emphasize that idea of here and now, you can own up the truth about yourself. His own personality would be in the background. That's a sound way of teaching. Many others in this tradition are like that. Not only him, he's just one great exemplar, but there are many like that. So that's very helpful. And so that's the kind of approach I would encourage, or I would suggest all of you just try and look at. So one or two books I will also suggest, which you can maybe keep it as a kind of recommended reading. So one book about Ramana Maharshi written by a Western author writes well is called Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge, okay, by Arthur Osborne. Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge by Arthur Osborne. It's a kind of biographical come teachings based book, very beautiful, readable book, reads very well. So just when you are free, just read that and you can relate very well. Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge. And there's another book, Be As You Are. Be As You Are, focusing on the teachings in a very structured way. Again, a Western author. Now, the thing about the Western authors is they're able to structure it well and cull all the important things. So I do kind of validate that, and they're good with their English as well. So it's very helpful. Be As You Are, David Godman. Okay, that's the author. So these two books are a lovely introduction, and they can really give you a beautiful insight. So I'd suggest just keep it on your bucket list of reading. Uh, Be As You Are by David Godwin, Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge by Arthur Osborne. Two wonderful books. And there's also another popular book. If you have not already read it, I suggest read it. It's generally about self-knowledge. Maybe you've heard of it, The Power of Now. I generally love to recommend that. Just upfront, just have a look at that. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, Eckhart Tolle. So it is a very accessibly written for a modern audience. I would suggest you can try these three, which are very good. And above all, I'd suggest that it's something that's really going to keep you grounded in all the life's experiences. You have to invest in yourself. Take some 15-20 minutes off every day just for yourself with any method of meditation. So when I was in college, it was a little difficult because you do any chanting, it kind of is audible to people around. You don't want that to be heard. So sometimes a little tricky. So what I used to do was I used to have something like a little white noise, some general instrumental something, and just do a gentle chant. That also is fine if you are not comfortable chanting. So this sometimes I encounter this problem that people are not comfortable chanting. So, but nevertheless, maybe today we just try a few minutes. Let's see how it goes. It'll be nice. But sometimes you don't have the privacy to chant, then just do a hum. So, like you take a deep inhalation and just hum. So instead of Om, again, I say this as a compromise because of privacy and other issues where you might not have that space in your wherever you're staying. So that kind of a thing is very helpful. Just get started with meditation, and I'll also give you a little, let's say a few cues how or where you can chant a certain mantra. Also, if you're already doing it, you can just add on what I am saying, sort of enrich whatever you're already doing, and we'll have that session. Maybe today we'll just do the meditation part right now in another 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll just have 15-20 minutes of a little meditation for now. And then if any question answers, we can. Okay. Can you turn off the lights? So before we start the meditation. I'll reiterate one point which I mentioned yesterday, which is to make sure that as you exhale, your lower abdomen goes in. Okay, that's something very important to rein in the mind and the breath. So, like I said, the cue, I'm just not yet starting the meditation, just giving you this first as an explanatory cue here. So if you remember yesterday, what we did was we first, in case you're having a doubt, am I doing the abdominal breathing as it's called? This abdominal breathing, am I doing it right? So the way you check is first exhale, trying to empty out all the air in your lungs. So at a sort of deep exhalation, okay? And a deep exhalation, you should find the lower abdomen, the belly button going in. Okay, that will invariably happen when you exhale fully. Then you slightly inhale, and you will find like a baby, how when a baby breathes, it's the very natural mother nature's breathing. As it breathes in, the whole body expands, and the baby breathes out, the whole baby as it were contracts like a small balloon, as it were. Very sweet. So like that, you need to get that rhythm. Inhale, lower abdomen goes out, but start with the exhale, lower abdomen comes in. So there's much, even research indicating this abdominal breathing is important in any meditative practice. So this is like bread and butter. Yeah, once you have this in place, then you can do all the self-enquiry and so on. So, but first you need to have this in place. The wrong way would be that when you inhale, your chest puffs up. Exhale, chest puffs down. So that's the flight and fight response, like that. So that's not what we want you to be doing. So because when you're just sitting in a sedentary posture, you don't need the thoracic breathing to kick in, what's known as thoracic breathing. So the chest muscles, we don't want them to be working there. It's too much energy. And so therefore, this is what I want you to pay attention to. Your chest remains relatively relaxed, not much movement there, all movement in the lower abdomen. Okay. So like I said, just take a deep exhalation, just empty out all the air in your lungs. Exhale and inhale. Exhale, lower abdomen goes in, and inhale, lower abdomen expands. Okay. This is the rhythm you have in this meditation session. Okay. So we'll start. Today we'll also do a little Om chant for a few minutes and you will get a feel for it. Take a moment to notice your body posture. Sit up erect if you're comfortable without leaning onto the back of your chair. Samam Kaya Shirogrivam. Head, neck, and trunk erect in a straight line. Shoulders slightly pushed backwards. The lumbar curvature, which is how the back is on the lower side, should be concave as seen from behind. So your abdomen, lower abdomen is slightly moved forward. You're not hunching the back. Notice this very posture is a sign of intention. Your intention to practice dhyana. That itself summons up the right frame of mind. Now start to notice the different parts of your body with your eyes softly closed, eyelids touching each other very softly, not pressing hard, no tension in the eyelids, just softly closed. And visualize in your mind's eye the different parts of the body, the legs, the hands, your entire body as a whole. Your legs, your feet on the ground. Notice the sense of touch between your feet and your sandals or on the ground, whichever the case may be. Now shift your attention to the seat of meditation. See that the weight of your body is uniformly pressing on the left and right side. If you wish, you can gently shift the weight towards the left and the right, and then find that center. The weight of your body uniformly pressing onto the seat. Hands placed on the lap. Notice the sense of touch between the hands and your thighs, or if they're intertwined, feel the sense of touch between your fingers. Now take a deep inhalation and chant along with me. Paying attention to the last syllable, the humming sound as well, saving some breath for chanting both the O and the M sound. Again, deep inhalation. Continue. Long inhalation and long chant. You can now stop the chanting. Just continue to observe your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils. Follow the path of the air as it enters, the cool feeling in your nostrils and your throat, paying attention all the way as the air enters the lungs. And as you exhale, the warmth of the air in your throat and your nostrils as it leaves. Count down from 10 to 0. With each count, you do a long inhale comfortably and a long exhale. So you'll have 10 breaths, 10 sets of inhale and exhale. If you lose the count, no matter, just start with 10 once again. If you miss the count, go back to 10 and count down 10 breaths. You can now stop the counting if you have not already completed and start to notice the sounds coming from the environment around you. the sound of air flowing. I do not choose what sound I am hearing. Hearing just takes place. I can suspend my free will and just be a pure witness. That is the highest freedom. The freedom to suspend free will and just notice, observe, witness what is in my mind or outside from the environment. This is how the sounds are. This is how my mind is. Now come to the mind itself and watch any thoughts if they arise. Without condemning the mind, I am friendly with my mind. I watch the mind like I watch a child or a pup, friendly. I am friendly with my mind and yet fearless. I am not afraid of whatever the mind does. The thoughts may come and go, or the mind may be quiet. I am that awareness in which the mind has its activity. Thoughts come, thoughts go, awareness remains the same. Whenever you get absorbed or carried away by the thoughts, draw back and notice the person who is thinking the thoughts. Who or what am I? The thinker. You shift your attention from the content of the thought to the fact that I am aware of the thought. No matter what the thought is, allow it to be. Don't fight it. But recognize I am aware of the thought. That I am in every thought. Awareness is never displaced by any thought. Awareness is never displaced. It always is. Who or what am I? Just stay with the meaning of that sentence without forming an answer verbally. Whenever the thoughts come, shift your attention to the non-verbal meaning, the intent. Who or what am I that is aware of this thought? Without trying to verbalize any answer, just shift your attention to the fact of being aware. I choose to be friendly to the thoughts, not condemning them, no matter what they are. Merely, I shift my attention to that awareness. Timeless, spaceless awareness. Am I in the body, or is the body in me awareness? Am I within the body, or is the body experienced in awareness? Now, I shall teach you a small method which will help you do the mental repetition of any mantra at a place deeper within your awareness. I shall give you a mental calculation which you can run as I give you the instructions. And at the end of that calculation, start repeating the mantra at that very point in your mind where you are doing this mental calculation. If you don't have any specific mantra for today, you can just choose Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Just use that or any other mantra if you are familiar with, or Om Namah Shivaya. So the way you chant within your mind, not aloud, in the deepest part of your mind is Om Namah Shivaya. Pause. Om Namah Shivaya. Pause. Om Namah Shivaya. This way, with small pauses, you'll be chanting in the deepest recesses of your mind. At that very point, I ask you to do this calculation. So as I end the calculation, I will say chant, and then at that very point where you did the calculation, you chant the mantra. Think of the number 5, multiply by 4, divide by 2, subtract 2, divide by 4, subtract 2, chant. You can now stop the chanting and allow the mind to be as it is. And if you're comfortable, say so much within your mind that I'm comfortable just being the simple, basic person. I am comfortable being the simple, basic person, the bhakta. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. You can now slowly open your eyes and sit back if you're not already doing that. I request someone to switch on the lights, please. Were you able to get the calculation? What was the answer? Yeah. Sometimes you lose the set, but that's okay. It's just where you do the calculation. It's helpful to do the repetition there. Zero was the answer. So any other questions? General questions also fine. Don't be self-conscious. Right. How much? We have to dream. Yeah, yeah. Right, right, right. Okay. How do you resolve that? So his question is, in order to achieve something, you need to have a dream. Okay? You need to have a goal and work towards it. And does that not imply that I have to feel some inadequacy or some lacuna, which I then try to fulfill by trying to achieve something? Well, the answer is no. The dream you have will very much be there even if you are of the nature of fullness. So the idea is not that you try to achieve something to become full. Okay, instead you are achieving out of fullness. Okay, that's an entirely different attitude. Is very much possible. It's not as if you feel a certain fullness you become lazy. No way. You actually become much more free and dynamic, more bold, perhaps less risk averse. So many things happen as you discover this inner fullness or inner depth in your meditation and in your understanding. So it's not as if you will not stop, you'll stop dreaming or you'll stop having some nice, beautiful goals to achieve. Not at all. You will still have them, but they are as a matter of celebration. They are not to get away from your small little self. They're not in order to get happiness. Rather, it's out of happiness. That's the spirit in which this tradition of our country looks at what is known as swadharma. So dharma means you have some dreams, your goals in keeping with your temperament, and you don't try to go for them out of a desire to just become full and complete because it's a mirage. You get there and the mirage is still ahead of you. You will never get there. Instead, you just say, I am full, I am happy being myself, and this is a nice dream, I'd like to do it. Like how a bird will sing, or like how you might, sing a song. So the idea is you do out of a certain fullness. So it's not necessary that you have to have a lacuna and a lack of fullness and inadequacy in order to dream. That's not necessary at all. You will continue to have dreams and goals. You will still work towards them. It's just that there is no more a feeling of helplessness. There is no more a feeling of frustration. That's the difference. Okay? Yeah. 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 Okay. His question also very important one. So yesterday we did some of the instructions. Today we didn't do that, but yesterday we did instructions centered around recognition that what is known as past and our own biography of ourselves, our story of our life. You see, all that we define ourselves based on basically, all of that is called past. And I said that whatever is past actually was present when you were directly experiencing it. So all that is past is always experienced in reality as present alone. Now you just form a concept of that. Okay. Okay. 1 year back, I did something, or I wrote some entrance exam some years back, and so on and so forth. So all that is again recollected when in the present. Okay. So when you look at the past, either you experience it directly in the what is was present at that time, or you recollect it in the present again. So either way, past doesn't exist. Okay, that's the claim. It's a very big claim here. But in terms of your existential being, past doesn't exist apart from the present. So past is collapsed into the present. That's the idea there. Past is all what is called past is just a set of concepts and set of thoughts in the present alone. That alone is real. Only the present is real. Past doesn't really exist apart from the present. Okay. So that means what? You need to deal with only the present. You don't need to deal with the past, truly speaking. That's the idea or what you're leading up to. Then again, I said the next thing, future. Future too is all plans which you make right now. I may make plans about the future, but right now, in the now, I make those thoughts about the future. When the future is actually experienced, it is experienced as now, okay, present. So when actually the thing happens several years later, you will experience that moment as now alone. So the now alone, the present moment alone is real. Everything else is just a concept which is in that present moment. It's a very important recognition of consciousness, that is you as timeless awareness. You are actually collapsing time in your experience when you are staying with that understanding. It's a very profound thing, really. So I just gave an inkling of that in a short way. But if you were able to you go along with that and carefully look at it in various ways, all that is past and future just gets collapsed to the present, which you need to deal with. Is the just the now. And how long is the now? How long, how many picoseconds is now? Zero. It's like a delta function. It's just zero. Okay. It's an asymptotic, contraction. Zero is the duration of the present moment, which means where is time? Time is gone. There is no such thing as time really. Awareness alone is in that various kinds of shapes and forms, thought, past, present, future, everything is happening in that awareness. And so you are actually that timeless awareness. It's mind boggling if you really go along contemplating in that direction. So in the tradition we say kalataha aparichinnaha, that is time wise limitless. So just to give you how the original words was, Ramana Maharshi would say bhutam bhavishyatcha bhavatsvakale tad vartamanasya vihaya tattvam hasyan kimsat gatibhavachacha. So he says both, that is past and future, don't have any existence apart from the present moment. Only the present is reality. So if you are with the present, you are outside of the stream of time. You are outside of the stream of time if you are totally present. So that's the meditation. Any other questions? Okay, so if that, we can maybe end today's session. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Suppose I go into some accident, you said? Yeah, I suffer some accident. Ah, ah. Okay, right. Right. So let me just rephrase your question. So her question is, whatever meditation and things are going your way, yeah, you can meditate and quieten the mind and all that. But when you're actually challenged by a crisis in your life, will this really help? Does that amount to your question? Yeah. So you're still having a sound mind, but it's just that the crisis is so acute, right? It's a big crisis, like an accident or some event which is very traumatic. Is that what you're having in mind? Yeah, for sure. So the two things are there. One is, and this is a very helpful way in general of looking at things, a very versatile, you can say, attitude. So I will use two words here. I'll just use two words. Okay. In any situation in your life, in any situation, there are two components to your experience. One is called Ishvara Srishti. Ishvara Srishti means things as they are, things in the environment, the weather, or people around being what they are. Okay? They can be friendly, unfriendly, whatever, it's their call. So things in your environment as they are is known as Ishvara Srishti. That is things as they are, the cosmic nature of things. And then there's something called Jiva Srishti. That is your own subjective superimposition upon that. So let's say there's somebody who is aggressive around you, and then you become very disturbed. Why is he so aggressive? Why does he do this to me? Why does he talk like this? And so that is Jiva Srishti. That is my subjective superimposition on that situation. So in any situation, what meditation will do is it will help you discern these two things. and minimize the subjective part of it. You have to deal only with the objective part. So if I let's say God forbid X, somebody called X undergoes an accident. So he has to deal with the pain. He has to take some treatment. He will do it very pragmatically. But the overlay won't be there. Overlay, oh, why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? That won't be there. That is Jiva Srishti. Okay, that is self-created suffering, if you like. So there's an objective component which you have to deal with. There's no denying that. It's not. We are not saying, oh, that's all unreal, wrong thinking. That's all confused, Vedanta. So we deal with the Ishvara Srishti. That is things as they are objective reality. There's a subjective component which is the real cause of the suffering. That's the major part. 80% is just a thumb rule, but 80% of whatever is distress or suffering is the subjective component. If you are able to deal with that, because it's in your hands really to deal with that, it's not compulsory. The 20% which is from the outside, the situation as it is, you can deal with it. You have the wherewithal, the resources to deal with that. So the teaching of this, the Acharyas and so on, is that most of the human suffering is self-created, is Jiva Srishti. So therefore, meditation helps you discern what component is objective suffering, what is your own self-created suffering, and then it reduces that self-created component of it. Such a relief. So any situation, no matter how bad it will, in practical terms, like come down to like 20%. If 100 units of suffering is what normal people suffer, so to speak, it will come down significantly. You can deal with it very pragmatically. Does that make sense? So the subjective component is dealt with. Just a small story, a little bit based on that. There's a nice book, you can also add it to your list, by Viktor Frankl. I was just discussing with Udayji, one of my favorite books, called Man's Search for Meaning. Some of you may have read that. Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian, Viennese psychiatrist, and he was in Auschwitz, I think, in a Nazi concentration camp. It's very powerful how he's able to do what we just discussed. That he's able to separate the Ishvara Srishti, the Nazi, guards behaving so violently and so ruthlessly, and then his own subjectivity. Was able to deal with that in some very powerful way. And he recognized when he came out, he was a healed man. He didn't have any PTSD, any post-traumatic stress disorder or anything. Very powerfully, he managed that situation. So that's like an extreme example. Somebody in a very stressful situation managing to delineate these two. And then you deal with the reality so that you don't have to you superimpose so much of excessive suffering. My teacher used to say that one of the things that is common to humanity, if you ask anyone on the street, he'll say, yeah, I'm having this much suffering, this much problems, or some complaints he'll have. He'll say, why me? Why do I have to go through all this? Then you talk to another man or another person, he'll say, yeah, these are my set of problems. Initially, they may not say that. You got to get them talking a little, okay? And they'll come to this, yeah, everything is fine. Like in the US, they'll use this expression. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's going well. Yeah, okay. How's your job? The job is kind of okay. And okay, how's your marriage? Marriage, yeah. They use this expression, iffy kind of thing. So I mean, there's some problem. So like that, they will talk. So the idea is every human being has this something going on. And so my teacher used to say, instead of saying, why me, maybe all of humanity should just come and say, why us? Why us? All of humanity is in the same boat. Why us? So that why us component is the Jiva Srishti. Okay, you can deal with that, reduce so that you deal with actual Ishvara Srishti, which is objective problems, earthquakes or floods. These are all they are not in my imagination. I'm not imagining a problem. It's real. So even so, in any subjective crisis too, there's a component which is objective. You can deal with that. It's not so difficult, no matter how bad it is. The subjective part is infinite. Your mind can blow up any problem to any extent. So you need to deal with the mind there. So that's the way meditation helps you deal with that second component. Yeah. A small portion of right. Right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Mhm. Sure. Yeah. So in case just his question is meditation the only tool or only method you have to deal with certain issues, or there are certain issues which meditation doesn't actually give you a comprehensive kind of a solution. You need to bring in other methods and things that to deal with them. So first, a specific question regarding addiction. Maybe many of you know this, but today the wisdom which is fairly sound is that addiction is a disease. So you cannot, it's not really 100% Jiva Srishti. To use this analogy which we just saw now, it's not Jiva Srishti. I'm not just imagining I am addicted. It's a purely internal, my own problem. I am creating this. No, there is an objective component. You need to maybe take some, you mean what the person needs to take some medication. So it's like how I have a bad cold. I'm not imagining it. Okay. It's Ishvara Srishti. I need to deal with it. Take at least some naturopathy or whatever, if not allopathy. So even so, addiction, etc., is in many cases a disease. So it needs to be dealt with a combination of both external intervention and meditation. Meditation in that way is, if it is like I said, avoid the hyperventilation, the wrong methods. Unfortunately, there are these wrong methods. But if a person avoids those and does simple, plain, vanilla, sensible methods, it's wonderful. It can add on and complement all the external interventions like for addiction, whatever other counseling or medication specifically. Alcoholism, this is a disease. So you need to take the medicine and then also do the meditation. If someone says, many people innocently say that, people who are given to meditation, no, you don't need to take any medicine, nothing. Just meditation is a panacea, or spirituality is a panacea. It doesn't work like that. It's incorrect. There are neurochemical changes which have occurred. They need to be reversed. That requires medicine. We have to be very practical and realistic there. The same goes for many psychiatric illnesses. So there's absolutely no need to deny that there is a necessity to take medication, but this will complement that. So meditation will complement that. It gives wonderful results as a complement to the other interventions too. Yeah. But when it comes to the Jiva Srishti component, to just build on her question, meditation will very comprehensively deal with that. So that's why you need to discern which component of any problem or situation is Ishvara Srishti, need external intervention, what I can deal with just by my inner, cognitive change. Yeah. I say this because again and again I see this mistake, and I have seen people very well known to me make this mistake as well of regarding every problem of the mind as something which is just subjective and no need for any medication or anything. Very wrong. Today we have to be very realistic, not be in denial that there is a component of medicine required to deal with certain kinds of conditions of the brain. No shame at all in that. In India, especially, this taboo is there, very sad, because those who are very practical and they know meditation, they will never deny the complementary nature of medical intervention. Yeah. Anyone else? Right. Okay. So first question is, what importance is the space, the physical space you do the meditation, and the time? Actually, it's a very long topic, but to put it briefly, it's good if you repeat the same time and space every day. Keep the time and space relatively fixed. It's very helpful. So because your mind has this association formed with that time. To give you an example from my own life, so normally in the tradition they would say early morning Brahma Muhurta is something very good, evening is very good. But I was in this college where I only had like afternoons a little bit free, some practicals were not there and so on. But over a period of time, I found that the afternoon is very good to meditate. It's not regularly a time when anyone does any japa or meditation. But the mind gets so conditioned that come afternoon, the siesta time, maybe half an hour post dinner, power nap for 15 to half an hour is fine. After that, your mind becomes very quiet, alert, because I've been doing it over and over again. So any time is fine. Stick to that over and over again. Very helpful. And last but not the least, building on what you said, uh, if you practice meditation at this age, it's take it from me 10 times more effective than doing it 10 years later. It's incredibly effective when you do it at a young age. Just ignore the your own self judgment about how effectively you're doing it. Oh, my mind is restless. Just forget that. The effort is enormously powerful. It's something deep inside changes. So when you're like below 30, nothing like it. It's a golden opportunity. Doesn't matter. Don't judge yourself. I'm not effectively meditating. Forget that. Just do it. and it's very helpful. It creates a samskara which is very permanent. Yeah. Does that answer your question? And time and space, yes. Place also, I told you that. What is the second part? Addiction. Yeah. So the thing about meditation is that if it becomes something like, not if it becomes, it will actually add value to whatever you're doing, and not doing it will not create any new distress for you. It's like, I eat healthy food, that's fine. But will I get addicted to healthy food? Never. So it's like, if I don't eat healthy food, I don't eat healthy food. So you're not going to lose anything more than what you already are. So it's like that. Meditation is like that. It's not. It's just that you're coming back to yourself, becoming very objective. So that's the thing. So there is no possibility of anything like an addiction centered around meditation. Yeah. Right. Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So since we had two sessions, I took the liberty of giving you several methods. Normally, one method you can do, I would probably do it over and over again until we get a little comfort level. And self-enquiry, the deepest part, I did it only for a short extent, because immediately saying self-enquiry, it's like jumping the gun. But having said that, so if you want to, like, let's say, recapitulate, we did one today. Let's say you did the Om chanting. So to give you a little detail on that, so the important thing is, like I said, get the abdominal breathing right. So it's worth spending a minute or two. Do we have time? Yeah, we have another 5 minutes. So how many of you, when you inhale, you find your chest going up? Just do that. So place your hand on your lower abdomen. As you inhale, you find the lower abdomen expanding and contracting as you exhale. Okay, inhale, lower abdomen expands, exhale, contract. I'll show you the wrong way. Not that you should do it. See that? Inhale and the lower abdomen going in, wrong, highly harmful. So one important part of meditation is to just get the breathing right. Okay. After that, it becomes a habit. You don't even have to think about it. So you see the wrong way. Oops. I'm sorry. So the wrong way would be like this. Your chest puffs up like those, bodybuilders or something. It's all in the head, maybe partly. So absolutely, restlessness, it will increase. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the elongated Om. Okay. We did the elongated Om, I call it. Dirgha Pranava. So there, like I said, for privacy concerns, you can, if you want, just make it like a hum. If you want, like to play it down and not attract attention, which is sometimes a problem. But otherwise, just chant it like Om, like we did now. If you have the freedom and you don't feel too self-conscious, then do that. So what did you do? You took a deep, long inhalation, filled your lungs, so to speak, comfortably, then elongated the chant. Very powerful. So that's another thing. When your exhalation is long, again it will increase parasympathetic activation. Okay, exhalation long, inhalation relatively lesser or normal. Not don't shorten it. Shorter or normal inhalation, long exhalation. Then the parasympathetic goes on increasing the longer you elongate, and that you do that very naturally when you chant the long Om. So they you do that. They have a count. So you chant Om, three matras. Okay, three intervals. Then you can do it 12. Om. Good. You can extend 16 and so on. So this is the method 2, if you like. Okay. Abdominal breathing. Pay attention to that. Second, elongated Om chant. Very effective. Third, silent mantra repetition within your mind. Probably the deepest surgical part of the whole operation. Little tricky because your mind will go running away. Don't condemn the mind, gently bring it back to where you did the calculation. Okay, method 3. These 3 you can stay with them. And fourth is what he was mentioning about becoming aware that I am aware. So you just stay with the fact of awareness. That requires some subtlety because your mind will just keep going here and there. What should I think about? So the question, who am I, is to bring the mind back to come back and just stay with the very idea, I am aware. I asked you a question, are you aware? Just not of anything. Are you aware? You'll say, yes, I am aware. From what point you're saying that? How do you say that? That becomes the content of your meditation. The fact that I'm aware, okay, not of anything in specific. So that is the fourth method. Just being with that awareness by coming back from any thoughts to what am I, just staying with that. That is the core part of the practice. Nididhyasanam, we can call it. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So if there are no more questions, we'll end today's session. Otherwise, Thank you. Yeah. Shall I give you this? You pardon me? Yeah. You can go ahead. Read out. Okay, I'll give a quick answer. So let's say so I fall asleep about 15 minutes into meditation. My parents already. Firstly, I suggest that don't look upon it as something bad, and let's look at an ideal situation. You have a lot of time on your hand. Let's say. Then if you sleep, just sleep. It's okay. Allow the sleeping to happen in meditation. Maybe it will last for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then when you wake up, meditate. Okay? Don't wake up and say, oh my God, time up. Don't do that. Use that opportunity when you wake up, get out of that abstract state. That's what they call a very helpful state. So Swapna, Nitra, Jnanam, Alapanam. It's the interval between the sleeping state and just waking up back to your ego and all the baggage. So you have that window of opportunity. So use that. That is the ideal thing. Having said that, there is a reason why the sleep occurs because the moment you slow down the thinking, your mind has only one association. Sleep is the only time when your thinking is a little bit relaxed. It is a strong association. The moment you slow down, you think you sleep. So it's very understandable. That is not sleep and then sleep. And last but not the least, to avoid that, then do it after that. If the person after a very good nap, then you can't.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our BSc spiritual mentor, Swamiji, for a vote of thanks.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. That was a very sweet vanilla flavored talk. He was repeatedly referring to that. Very deep thoughts he presented in a very simple way. And I thank Raghav Ji for accepting our invitation and coming over, spending 2 days, 2 evenings with us. Happiness that doesn't come and doesn't go. So it is something which is my very true nature. So that's why it cannot come, it cannot go. That is my very nature. He had this question: what will happen? Swamiji says, day and night, tell yourself that you are the spirit. That is, get into that awareness that you are that consciousness. When you do that, he says a fisherman will be a better fisherman, a lawyer will be a better lawyer, a student will be a better student. You will not lose anything because then you have so many constructs in the mind, so many constructs given by my previous lifetimes and this very lifetime I have picked up from my culture and so on. All that is distorting my understanding, perception, and responses to this world. So, this process helps me to come out of those constructs. It is like a scaffold. Very few people understand that they are thinking with a construct. And because they are so identified with the construct in the sense of ideas, likes, dislikes, this is good, this is not good, this should be like this should not be like that. I am a Hindu, you are a Muslim, you are a Christian. From the birth, childhood, I am given some constructs. This is how life is. This is what is correct. This is what is wrong. And it becomes part of me. And I never question that because questioning that means I lose and it's sense of loss from inside, which brings a sense of fear. Then what do I hold on to if I don't know what I am? Now, this is a very simple way of just dropping those scaffolds without literally trying to throw it away. You just go inside and try to discover that consciousness. We have discussed this earlier. I don't want this. So if I keep telling I don't want this, I don't want this, I'll be torturing myself. Suppose I take up a vanilla ice cream. I'll have to drop this. I'll have my vanilla ice cream in my hand. So it is dropping a scaffold like that, a construct like that, means just taking up something else. And that taking up here is not replacing one object with another object. It is going inside into the awareness. And that was a very simple way of going inside. This has to be accompanied with a persistent way of living, thinking. He was asking, if I do meditation, everything will become okay. It will help you to become okay for some time, maybe. And when you get up and you start becoming jealous of your friend, or you're greedy about something, and you are scratching everything else, then everything is lost. That has to be maintained. Like the Sri Ramakrishna gives the analogy. An elephant is taken and given a bath. And when it is being brought back, if the mahout is not careful, this fellow picks up mud and throws it on himself. Now, all that, it is not easy job giving bath to an elephant. It's a big fellow. And he'll not be very comfortable with that. Now, in 1 second, he spoils the whole thing. So he says, after it is given a bath, the mahout is very careful. He will goad him and put him inside. He has an enclosure. There is no mud there. So when you do meditation, after that you have to be careful not to go on pick up something else. So that is the lifestyle. Yama, niyamas, which we were discussing in the last class. These are all do's and don'ts you have to add on to this. This will help you to clean yourself. You should not come out and again dirty yourself. That is your attitude towards life, your lifestyle, your value system. Those who attended last class, we were discussing that. Swamiji says, no, if you have an ideal, you may make 1000 mistakes. But if you don't have an ideal, you'll be making 50,000 mistakes. So ideal means those values. What is it that I live by? What is it that I stand for? Irrespective of what the world throws at me, I live by something. And how many of those values should I pick up? How many? 25. 5. Swamiji says, take up 5 ideas and make them your own. Then you're more learned than a man who has by hearted your whole IIT library. Those 5 ideas, 5 values. If I can internalize them, and then this meditation system, this process, which will help me to go inside and function from my inner depths. That's also not a right way. You function from a level which will give you that joy. It is a joy which doesn't come and go. The right word the Upanishads use is bliss. Physical level, it is pleasures. At the realm of the mind, in the realm of ideas, you have a project, your paper is accepted, there is joy. That is not bliss. There is something else which is inside you, your true nature, that is called bliss. That is something which is your very nature, Sat Chit Ananda. That doesn't come, that doesn't go. Discovering that, our scriptures declare is the goal of life. It is not going into some heaven. It is not going to heaven. Going to heaven is not our goal. My goal as a Sanatana Dharma follower is to discover who I am, what I am. That's what Ramana Maharshi gave that pititi. Nan yar. The Upanishads give that. Main kaun hu, main kya hu. When you go into that discovery, you come to this, the joy, the bliss inside, which doesn't come, which doesn't go. We thank Raghav Ji once again for coming us and leading us on these lines. Thank you very much.